Good morning, everybody. This is Mr. Byrne. Today we are going to be talking about converting fractions, decimals, percents between all of those things. Now we talked about this a little bit the last couple of days. So some of this might be a review for some of you guys. I know some people in my class are getting really good at this, but I'm going to add on to that a little bit. I'm going to add some extra steps, okay? So let's start with something easy here. So let's say you have the fraction of 42 over 100. Some of you guys look at that right away and you know exactly what the percent is. But what I want you to realize is that this symbol right here is basically a division symbol, right? That means 42 divided by 100. You can put your 42 there and you can put your 100 there, and it's the same thing. 42 divided by 100. If you were to write that into a math problem, it's 42 divided by 100. Now, we don't really have to do this one like this because we know that if you have two zeros here, you can just move your decimal point back 2 spots and it'll give us the decimal of 0.42. And that's something that maybe you didn't know before this lesson. Maybe you didn't know until I just said it right here, but it's really that easy. You just divide it by 100 and you move your decimal 2 places. There's 2 zeros, 2 places. That's how I remember it. Now, to make 42 into or 0.42 into a percent, it's kind of the same thing. This time you multiply it by 100. And when you're multiplying by 100, this time you move 2 times to the right. You move your decimal 1, 2. And so our percent is 42%. So yeah, with a number like 42 over 100, it's pretty easy. You get 42 over 100, you get 0.42, and you get 42%. Okay, so let's say that we have a fraction that's not necessarily with 100. Let's say we have one that's 7 over 10. I think the easiest way to switch that into a fraction, or to change that into a decimal and a percent, is to make this denominator 100. And again, on this one, that's pretty easy. Obviously, I can multiply by 10, and that gives me 70 over 100, which we know would be 0.70 or 70%. Okay? So let's say it's not that easy of a number. What do you say we go 3 over 5? And this is the last one we'll do with a different number, but I just want you to practice getting to a 100 on the bottom. So if we have a 5 here, 5 times something equals 100. Well, what is 5? I mean, we can count up by 5s if that's what you need to do. But I know that 5 times 20 equals 100. So if I do times 20 on the bottom, I have to do times 20 on the top. And 3 times 20 is 60. So by this point, you can probably see the pattern. We have 0.60, which could also be 0.6. In case you were wondering, you can drop that 0 off, or 60%. Okay, so now let's see. Yesterday we had some problems where it was a very weird number, and Mrs. Wells showed us this the other day, but I'm going to show you again just in case. Let's say it's something with like a 6 on the bottom. Can 6 is a bad example because it's going to come out with a crazy number. Well, we'll do it. Can 6 go into 100 evenly? Is there something I can multiply 6 by to get to 100? You can count all the way up, and you're not going to find something. I believe we'll get to 96 and then 102. It's going to be somewhere in between there, but it's not going to be exact. So we got to remember, division symbol, 5 divided by 6, right? 5 divided by 6. So we can write it like this, 5 divided by 6. I gave myself some extra room over here because I know that I'm going to have to add some decimal points. All right? So 5 would be the same as 5.0. It's the same thing, right? We can add as many zeros as we need behind that decimal point. So let's see, how many times can 6 go into 5? Well, it can't. How many times can 6 go into 50? Well, let's see. We can go all the way up to 48. Yeah, 6 times 8. Sorry, I should know that better. 8. 48. 2, okay, well, let's add another 0. 6 into 20, that's 3, 18, 2, 20, 3, uh-oh, what's happening here? I'm going to get the same number over and over and over. Now, if you put 5 divided by 6 into a calculator, and you may find this, you may have found this yesterday with a couple different numbers, there's going to be a number that just repeats over and over and over and over and over and over. All right? You don't have to write the answer as, let's carry our decimal point up. You don't have to write 0.83, okay? Or 0.8333333333. You can just round it. Let's just round it to 2 things. So 5 6 would be pretty close to 0.83. All right? Which would be pretty close to 83%. Eventually, you might be expected to learn about these numbers that go on and on and on forever, but in 6th grade, that's okay. We probably won't even give you many of those, but if you see it, I don't want you to be like, oh my gosh, what do I do? All right? So let's do one more. Let's do, here, let me get a better piece of paper here. Let's do 1/8. 1/8 will come out to an even number at least. It'll have a couple decimals. So 1 divided by 8. I know that 8 doesn't go into 1 at all, so I'm going to have to add a 0. 8 can go into 10 2 times. So we're going to go here, 2. Let me add another 0 and bring that down. How many times can 8 go into 20? Well, it can go in, oh my gosh. I just wrote a 2, even though I said 1. It can go in 2 times, 16. And bring that down to a 40. How many times can 8 go into 40? 5 times. And where's my decimal point go? Right here. So my decimal, 1/8 as a decimal would be 0.125. To change that into a percent, again, we're going to multiply by 100. That means you move your decimal over how many times? You go 1, 2 times over. So as a percent, it would be 12.5%, which is okay. Percents can have decimals in it. I know some people were worried because fractions can't have decimals on the top or the bottom. Percents can have a decimal in it. That's okay. All right. So that's pretty much how you convert any fraction into a decimal or percent. I'm going to show you one more thing because the problem that we just looked at had something different, a little strange. It was about Cassie's teacher, and she gave her some extra credit, right? So she has more than 100 points out of 100, right? In her class, she has 100 points possible, but she did extra credit. She has 121 points out of 100. So the question is, how do we write that as a decimal? How do we write that as percent? So what I want you to think about is this, I mean, there's a name for this. It's called an improper fraction, right? Because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. Is this number, if we made it into a mixed number, going to be bigger than the number 1? Is it bigger than 1? Well, let's change it into a mixed number real quick just to see. So I know that 100 goes into that 1 time, so it'd be 1 with 21 100ths left over. So yeah, that's a bigger number than 1 because it has a whole number and a fraction. So if we were to change this into a decimal, it's going to kind of be the same thing. We have 1 whole number, and then we have 21, 21 over 100 would be 0.21. So you could pretty much look at it as like, well, there's your whole number, and then 21 over 100 would be 0.21. So this, as a decimal, is 1.21. And you could do that with any number. I'll show you a couple more in a second. But what would that be as a percent? Because a lot of people look at it and say, well, we can't have a percent over 100. You can. You can in certain situations. Not always. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, but every once in a while there's a situation, like in grades, if you get extra credit, you might have over 100%. So this is the same rule. We're going to multiply this by 100. We're going to move this over 2 times, and that gives us 121%. She has 121% in class. Now, that's really high, but we thought we'd make it a pretty good extra credit assignment. So that's how you do numbers that are over 100% or over, yeah, over 100% or over the number 1. So let's look at another one real quick. Let's say that somebody had 630 over 100, okay? It's still a fraction. It's an improper fraction, sure, but we could still change it. So we have 6 wholes, and then what's left over, we have 30 over 100. Now, you guys know how to do 30 over 100 now. What would that be as a decimal? 0.30. And then if we were going to make that a percent, you move it over twice, 630%. Seems like a crazy big number, and it is. 600% of something's a lot, but that happens sometimes in real life. One of the questions actually on the rest of the assignment asks you where you might see percents in real life. So if you can find one of these, maybe we'll give you some extra credit for coming up with something that's not usual in real life. So if you need any help with any of this, because I know I just went over a lot of stuff, ask your teacher, ask me, and we will help you as much as we can. Good luck and have fun.